You're listening to the Apple Insider Podcast.
Welcome to this episode of the Apple Insider Podcast. This is an experimental episode where William is traveling the world on iOS only. Normally we record with Macs. So if you hear sound quality issues or note that we have difficulties, well, this is our second time recording the episode. We're going to get right through it then. That's William the Wilted Gallagher. All right.
Wilted. Again, I prefer wandering. I liked what you just said there. That's right. Yes. What's going on in the world?
ARM processors from Macintosh.
Okay. I'll have two. Do they do them in blue?
This Intel stuff is garbage. Let's just forget about it. We're going to go to ARM.
Okay. I mean, one can understand Intel is taking a very long time to do what it promised. But really, can Apple seriously just switch over? It's a bigger job than it sounds, isn't it?
In the past, when Apple switched over, it's always been a big task. But the way that they've addressed it has been through neat tricks like running classic software or legacy software in emulation. The change from the Motorola 6800 or 68,000 processors to the PowerPC was a monumental shift that required a huge undertaking, and some software got left behind, but a lot of it worked in System 8. The shift to PowerPC was a difficult one. The shift to Intel was a much easier one at that time. They'd been able to compile OS X for Intel. They'd be able to get fat binaries going for Intel. It still required some legacy software, so they wrote an emulator called Rosetta. And then after that, it's like not that hard any longer. The difficulty is going to be part of what we're seeing play out now with Marzipan apps, where we have UIKit and AppKit, and one of them is going to win out. And the answer is it's the one that's on iPhone. That's the one that wins. So when everyone gets on board with that, when Marzipan becomes a little bit more fleshed out, that's when this change makes a lot of sense. And Ming-Chi Kuo, who issued the analyst note, says that we should expect this really no later than 2021. So 2020 or 2021, we'll have ARM processors in Macintosh, probably.
And I mean, I can see certain advantages to that. I can see that Apple likes to control absolutely everything, and there are obvious reasons why. But that just sounds to me like everybody who's got an iOS app is likely to make a Mac app if it's particularly easy for them. But you look at something like Microsoft Word, for example, which I think is better on the iPad than on the Mac. It's better because they've started again and they have far fewer features. They've ditched the decades of junk.
But no, they didn't start again. The code that is running Office apps from Microsoft on iOS is the same code that is running Office apps for Android, is the same code as running Office apps for Macintosh and for Windows.
I'm trying to remember what features it definitely doesn't have.
They have unified the code base. It is a unified code base. In years past, Office Mac and Office for Windows were entirely separate animals. They did not share a unified code base. And with Office 2016, they do. And so what has happened here is that they have aligned, and underlying it all is the same heart. Now, some features aren't surfaced and some features aren't present, and the UI is different. But at the heart of it, these things are now the same. And that's a big victory because it was a monumental undertaking.
Except surely Microsoft Word for iPad is a smaller app. And I know it doesn't crash as often as the Mac. So that doesn't sound to me like it can have all of these other features. Are you saying at the compile time, perhaps they choose to leave stuff out?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that suggests that it's probably more than just compiling it for a different machine. They've made choices of optimization. Will Microsoft do that to put Office on Macs?
Well, they want to reach as many people as they can, especially in the age of Google Docs, especially in the age where they would face antitrust again or face complaints again if they did not have Office on a competing platform. So it is something that they would definitely do. The question is, could they port it? And I think the answer is yes. As many different architectures as they've currently got it going for anyway. I mean, they visited ARM with Surface RT. And
I'd forgotten about that. Yes. Okay.
You know well that they're doing it again. They've got another Surface product out there with ARM in it. So they're going to keep looking at this, and they're going to make sure that Office runs on it, whatever it is. If they can compile it for ARM for the other thing, and the code base is unified, then an ARM Mac gets it as well.
Okay, that makes sense. I think it's an interesting change in the world where before allegedly, arguably, Microsoft didn't go on the iPad because they thought it wasn't going to succeed, and if it did, it was going to be a rival. And now I feel like that's actually what's broken Microsoft's hold on word processor users.
Well, remember when they said that, they were still focusing on what Windows Phone could be.
Right.
And now that we know that the answer is nothing, that Windows Phone took a dirt nap, that this is not an issue. But I want to talk about something else that popped up in Ming-Chi Kuo's note, which is that besides his thinking that this changes Apple into a full stack ARM shop, a full stack shop where they own everything, including the graphics processor and the CPU, because they would obviously if they're putting an A-series chip in a Mac, that they're also working on advanced driver assistance systems for the Apple Car, and that will also use a TSMC chip. That is, he said, to launch, he thinks, between 2023 and 2025.
So the Apple Car is not dead.
Well, we knew that it wasn't dead, but it's still there. It's still evolving. Now, he thinks it's either going to support high automation of driver tasks or complete automation, including nav and driving. Now, this is interesting because we know that the Apple Maps crew are out war driving the world to map everything. And I actually spotted an Apple Maps vehicle.
Right.
Last weekend, I was standing in my driveway preparing for a road trip, and the Apple Maps minivan rolled past my street.
Did you follow it?
I did not, but I photographed it.
Oh, okay. Right. I have seen evidence of people following, actually I think it was Google Maps cars, just getting ahead of it a few times so that they would be permanently recorded somewhere.
And Google does the thing where they blur faces out, and I expect Apple will as well if they even give us a street view. But if there's a street view from Apple Maps, they'll see me holding my iPhone up photographing them. But I took rapid fire shots. I've got really great pictures of the Apple Maps vehicle driving past me.
Cool. I know nothing about cars. Is it a particularly notable type of vehicle? I mean, I presume it's got cameras and.
It has. I'll put a picture in the show notes. That's what we'll use for this week.
Excellent.
But so that's going on now. Also, adding fuel to the fire for the Apple Car is a patent application, which was published on the USPTO site, Patent Trade Office, that shows Apple is working out a way, or has invented a process to use multiple DC converters to handle down converting voltage. So what happens is an electric vehicle uses an 800-volt battery pack because you have to have that much juice to run the wheels.
Right.
And it's not just about voltage purely. It's also about milliamp hours or amp hours, because you have to have a huge amount of amps to be able to run that for any length of time. And so that's why you get these giant big battery packs for cars. Now, the motors obviously take that 800 volts, but the infotainment system, the bus for power windows and door locks and everything else uses low voltage, uses 12 volt DC. Not in the rest of the world cars could use even lower. I mean, you run the computer off of 5 volt and 3.3 volt. So you have to regulate and down convert from 800 volt to 12, right?
Right. That actually, I've never thought about it, but that seems like a massive conversion job.
Well, so what happens is when you do that, you tend to lose potential energy in the form of heat.
Right. Okay.
It's not a very efficient thing always, because that energy's got to go somewhere. So you spend some as heat, but never mind that. The reason that this is interesting is this patent says they're using multiple DC converters. So what happens is, first of all, they use the one to drop from 800 to 12, and then they throw a second one in line to regulate the power. And the reason that you do this is, that when you have that voltage drop, these electronics are sensitive ones to power transients. They're sensitive to spikes, they're sensitive to drops, they're sensitive to fluctuations. And so you use the second power converter as a way of regulating and smoothing out that, so that you get solid 12 volt DC all the time, as opposed to one that dips or surges based on power regeneration or power drop in demand when you give power to the motors. And so this is both an interesting patent, and it's also a good sign that there's continuing work on the car. Now, you were talking to me earlier when we were talking about this offline, and you'd asked me why on earth Tesla, what are Tesla doing? Because you rode a Tesla from the airport to your hotel, didn't you?
I understand this, I think, as much as I'm ever going to, but yesterday I was picked up at LAX in the most gorgeous Tesla car and delivered to my hotel. It was great. But it worked, and they had entertainment on at the time. So Tesla has solved all of this, presumably. Why does Apple need to go do it differently?
Tesla has done this differently. What Tesla's doing is they have the 800-volt battery in the floor of the car, and then up front in the front trunk, or frunk, if you will, they have a 12-volt normal battery.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay. Right. But that still means it's done, doesn't it? I mean,
well, what they've done is they've given up, right? They've separated out the systems. And Apple's solution is to run everything off of the one battery, with one battery management system, with one charge controller, with all of the stuff that they can do off of one unit, as opposed to sort of throwing their hands up and saying, yeah, right, so we got the big thing, and we also got this 12-volt normal battery.
Well, it seems neater to do it this way, but okay, Apple is neat, yes.
Well, and it's also, so there's a functional benefit there, but there's also this is Apple patenting things that they can patent.
Oh, okay. Right.
Part of having a patent war chest is amassing and patenting the technology so that should it come up, you have it later.
What, you think there might be lawsuits and patent trolls around? That never happens. Okay.
Around a technology that would be really interesting, like an Apple vehicle? No.
God, okay.
No.
But, well,
no.
Okay. Keeps the lawyers busy, I suppose. And, that's nice. Okay, so I take it then, apart from the interesting fact of the engineering, the point here is that it looks so much like there will definitely be a car. I thought that the thing was that perhaps Apple had stopped trying to make an actual automobile and were going to try to do things with other manufacturers, or that maybe they were going to buy Tesla. I don't know. You hear these things.
Well,
but this sounds like no.
They poach, there was this poaching of employees going back and forth between Tesla for a while. And, Elon Musk, who has a big mouth, said that, Apple employees weren't worthy of working at Tesla. They just weren't high enough caliber. So you see this kind of thing go on. Apple was trying to work with BMW earlier on to see if there was something they could work out for using their platform. That didn't seem to pan out. And so Apple is going their own way. Now, why is this important? Well, Google's working on it. The Uber and Lyft are working on it. There's a ton of energy being poured into this notion of fixing transportation, and automated driving fixes transportation in a key way. And that way is, right now, there are approximately, anywhere from 40 to 60,000 people that die in automotive-related deaths every year in America alone. Now, if I told you that 40 to 60,000 people were going to die every year, you would say that was a pandemic.
Yes.
Right? If I said 40 to 60,000 people were going to die preventable deaths due to illness, you'd say, oh my God, why isn't somebody doing something?
Right. And you would tell me they are, and this is it. Okay.
Right. But because we think of driving as normal and having risks associated with it, this is just what people have come to accept. And the future of the automobile is one where maybe that isn't acceptable anymore. There are a few things that happen here, right? So first of all, Uber and Lyft are working on this, right? They like the idea, and they're not alone. GM is working on it through their thing with Avis rental cars, and they're also sharing that technology, because the idea here is that if you had a rental car company, you would absolutely want your self-driving car doing it rather than trusting in going on the insurance of the person driving, right?
Yes.
Protect your investment in your fleet. If you are a insurance company, you could change the world just by simply saying that people who use self-driving are going to have way better rates.
Good grief, yes, okay, and that's
right.
You can see that inevitable, yeah.
And along with this, car ownership changes. If Uber and Lyft do this, and you can simply page one whenever you need, then what's the value in owning a car?
Yeah. Okay. Isn't that funny? My mind just went simultaneously to the fact that I actually might enjoy driving now, but also I don't enjoy the servicing and the constant repairs of it and things. But no, hang on. A third thing, we're saying Apple is going to introduce a car, and at the same time, fewer people are going to need cars at all. Has Apple missed the boat here?
It's a good question. I mean, at the same time as all this is happening, there's things like Bird and Lime that do bike share and electric scooter share. And if the truth is that city infrastructure allows you to ride a scooter in a protected lane on a street, then do you need a car necessarily? You might need a car for doing grocery shopping, just because in terms of carrying stuff.
Yeah.
But, for your quick commute to work, you could do an electric bicycle, you could do a scooter.
Last night, when I was being driven along, I admit I was looking at the Tesla equipment, but I did glance out of the window at one point, to show willing, and I was certain somebody rode by on a motorized skateboard, and I wasn't sure.
They did.
In traffic, it was quite impressive, actually. But, so you can, okay. I think I quite want one of those. Forget cars. Give me a motorized skateboard.
Yeah. Well, we've reviewed a couple of those here at Apple Insider.
So they're mainstream now. They're available. It's not just hobbyists with a soldering iron and an engine.
No, for years now.
Right.
We did Boosted. We did one that was called eBoards or something like that. There was another one I saw at CS that I quite liked that I wish I could get a hold of, but I haven't gotten a hold of them. We're looking at doing a one-wheel review.
I'm sorry, a one-wheel review.
Yeah, so instead of a skateboard has the board, and it has two trucks with four wheels at the corners, basically.
Yeah.
A one-wheel says, you know what, forget all that. You got a board, and then stuck in a hole right in the center of the board is a really giant wheel, a single one. And so you sort of balance like a seesaw on the thing.
Oh, I see.
While the wheel
Right.
drives you forward.
Okay. It's getting closer and closer to a hoverboard. I like it. Yes.
Yeah, one large rubber wheel with a motor in the center of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. Sorry, I got you off on the point there. I was just so distracted by it. But transport is changing, and all because of electric motors, by the sound of it.
We are seeing the unbundling of transport. Yeah.
Unbundling of transport. That's a great phrase. Okay. Yes.
Now, I'm going to tell you about PDF Element for a moment. We'll get right back into it. PDF Element is a complete PDF solution via cross-platform, Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. It's intuitive and easy to use, especially if you're familiar with Microsoft Office, mentioned before. We have little doubt that most users will be able to quickly get up and running with it. It provides facilities for PDF creation and editing, form creation, digital signatures, and commenting, plus integrated optical character recognition, OCR, so that scanned paper documents can be turned into truly editable PDFs. Given that it's so much cheaper than Acrobat, it makes a lot of sense for small business use. Facebook. Did you see Facebook introduced a video chat device?
Yes. I mean, we got a few of those.
Well, we got a few of those. This one is a screen with a camera and a speaker and has Alexa built in. They partner with Amazon for that. And it's for using video chat over Facebook Messenger.
Okay. Sounds like Google Home Hub plugged into Facebook. Is that about it? Is that
something kind of like that? Now, they were very clear. They stressed that they have privacy credentials, that it doesn't monitor or retain the encrypted calls, that they have physical and mechanical means of disconnecting the camera, that they're all about the privacy.
Great. That sounds brilliant.
Well, they lied.
Okay, do you mean they allegedly lied? Should we walk that back a little bit? Yeah.
Well, so I don't have to walk it back too far, and I'll say that because after there were reports saying that no data would be collected from Portal for advertising purposes, they've then admitted that, yeah, actually, okay, fine, some data does get collected. So in a statement that they provided to Recode, they advised that while Portal doesn't show advertising, data about who users call and the apps used on the device can be used in advertising decisions on other Facebook-owned services.
Okay, that does seem like at least a 99% reversal of things. And it surprises me from Facebook. The reversal, not the privacy.
Oh, no, the reversal shouldn't surprise you. Every other time they've said, no, we don't do that. A couple weeks later, yeah, we do that.
Okay.
That's Facebook's history.
Yes.
No, we would never. Yes, we do. No, we don't. Yeah, run an advert in the New York Times, full page ad apologizing. Yeah, we did that. That's the Facebook rinse, cycle, repeat is, we don't do that. Oh, yeah, we do. And you know what? We knew all along we did, and we're sorry, but we're going to keep doing it.
Okay. Well, I have, it sounds bad when you put it this way, but I have previously been aware that it's sometimes better to do something and apologize afterwards than to ask permission first. But I'm talking about when I was in the BBC and things, and if you didn't do it, nothing ever happened. But this is different. This is messing with people's lives.
Why would you keep placing your trust in them?
Why would I put my trust in Facebook? Habit, actually, I think more than anything else. I can't think of another reason.
Well, earlier this year, when the Cambridge Analytica scandal broke, we ran two stories. One, how to delete your Facebook account, and the other, how to delete a lot of your activity and minimize your exposure on Facebook.
Yeah.
And at that time, I wrote the one about purging your activity, and I purged all of my activity back to like 2009. And the past week, I just said, you know what, forget it, I've had enough, and I deleted my account.
Oh, right. Okay. I did notice you've never sent me a friend request, but I just took that as personal. Okay. How do you feel out there alone in the wild without Facebook?
I feel okay. I'm
Facebook
all right
is
with
your
this.
friend.
You know, I had someone call up to interview me for a documentary they're doing on the first iPhone launch. And when they sent the invite request to speak, they said, can we just talk via Facebook Messenger? And I wrote back and said, actually, no, we cannot. I've deleted Facebook. And it was really, she wrote back and she said, that's so refreshing. That's so interesting that someone talking about iPhone and Apple and stuff doesn't even have Facebook any longer. Like, there you go. I did it at the right time.
Okay.
And, you know, I got a bunch of people requesting, you know, sending me emails saying, what happened? Can we still get in touch with you? Well, you know what? Yes. If that's the result, that I deleted it and they noticed and we can go ahead and talk somewhere else. Yes. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like it. It feels to me as if I have decreased the vulnerability surface of my identity.
Wow. That's quite a phrase. Okay. Put that on a t-shirt.
I just made that up. Yeah.
Okay. I'll put it on a t-shirt then. Yes.
Well, you're doing that. I want to tell you that almost every day we hear about something on the news about a cyber attack. Sometimes it's just a bunch of pranksters. Sometimes it's a foreign country with vast cyber resources trying to hack our power grid, our banking systems, or our military's information networks. The National Security Agency plays a big part in protecting our country from cyber attacks, and you can help. The NSA is hiring technical professionals to serve on the front lines of information security. If you work in computer science, networking, programming, or electrical engineering, you can help keep our country safe. Design new hardware systems and networks, write faster, smarter programs, protect America's critical infrastructure, or help uncover what our adversaries are planning to do next. Learn more about careers at the National Security Agency today. Visit intelligencecareers.gov/NSA. That's intelligencecareers.gov/NSA, NSA in all capital letters.
Right. So I've got my t-shirts ready. Are you an X or an XL?
L,
Okay.
M to L, basically.
All right. Okay. In
I've got to
Britain,
watch my figure.
XXL. Well, okay. Yes. And you do it very well.
Mm.
Yes. Okay. Right. So I'm sorry. I'm bundling up t-shirts. For some reason, we're dissing Facebook. I can't imagine.
Well, we're moving on from that because we're going to talk about something that's a little more tragic.
Yeah.
There's been a story going on the past couple of days about a Washington Post journalist named Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed in Turkey. And the reason that we're talking about it specifically is because the Apple Watch keeps getting brought up as a part of the details of the story. Now, Khashoggi wore a cellular Series 3, an LTE Series 3 Apple Watch. And this is known just because there are many photos of him, and you can see the little red dot on the crown.
Right.
This is an interesting thing, and we're even getting wrapped up in the story. So let's start. First of all, he was a green card holder in America, so someone on the path to citizenship legitimately in America, worked for the Washington Post. The Washington Post is, of course, owned by Jeff Bezos. Bezos has not commented at all on this story. Now, it's interesting, partly because normally he stays out of the news, fine. He lets the Post run their own way. But you would think as the owner of the paper, he would have something to say about this. He has not. News reports keep mentioning the Apple Watch as the source of data for a questioning by a hit squad. So he went to visit the Saudi embassy in Turkey. And when he was there, he was accosted and assaulted by a hit squad. And there's an audio file. The audio file of this was reportedly synchronized with his iPhone, which was in the possession of his fiancée, who was waiting outside the consulate during this exchange. Some people are presuming that was within Bluetooth range, but the thing about consulates is that they tend to be very secure. They tend to have no wireless signals coming in and out intentionally.
Well, yes, that makes sense.
It's a part of securing the console. And so what we don't know is how this audio was transferred to the iPhone, how it made its way to iCloud, how it made its way out of the watch, for that matter. We don't know what app he used or anything, but there's reports that suggest that Saudis wiped certain files from his device or devices. They were unsuccessful in deleting data from iCloud. Now, if the Apple Watch recorded this attack, it's not clear how that happened. It's not entirely clear that it really was the Apple Watch, although that's what everyone's saying.
I should point out I often record audio on my Apple Watch. There's an app called Just Press Record, which is really handy when you need a quick record of a impromptu speech you're making or something.
Yeah, so your task is to take this app and others like it if you can find them, and record with your iPhone off and see if the recording goes to iCloud, and then record when you are off Wi-Fi and see what happens when Wi-Fi is restored, because in your case you have a Wi-Fi watch, not an LTE watch.
Yes, I do.
But we want to test and figure out how the data got out and where it would go in your example. Right. Now, the other concern here, and how we began to be part of the story, is that this is weird. So, it's possible that, like I said, this isn't a part of an Apple Watch recording at all, that this is a part of a disinformation campaign. At the same time, on Monday, a domain that's very similar to our own at Apple Insider was purchased and registered in Panama. Now, we're appleinsider.com. But someone registered AppleInsider.org, and they redirect to ours for every story there is, pretty much, except for the ones talking about Jamal Khashoggi's murder. Okay. Those they took Mikey Campbell's story and they edited it and reworked it and changed it and posted it on their bogus domain. And they alleged that Apple CEO Tim Cook had spoken to us in broken English. Now, obviously, Tim Cook speaks wonderful English. He's a well-educated man. The broken English should have been a tip-off to people that this is not what happened, but also the domain should have been a tip-off. So
well,
we're not sure.
I admit, I often don't bother.
You fall for it.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not proud of that, but yeah.
It's going to get harder, though, in the future to tell, because Google has said openly that they want to do away with the URL.
Right.
They think that the URL is an impediment to using the internet, and they're going to get rid of it. So it could be even more difficult to tell in the future. But there's no good reason why the assailants would want to impugn Apple Insider. There's no good reason that we can think of why this is happening, other than maybe people in Panama want to manipulate Google search results and take advantage of our own Google rankings to do it. That's okay. The simplest explanation we can come up with.
Well, that makes sense. Piggyback on Apple Insider's long decades of audience figures. But did they try to do it for anybody else and make it look like there were multiple sources?
Not that we know of.
Okay, nytimes.org didn't appear then.
I don't know. Right. Weird.
Okay, right.
Stuff is weird. Yeah. In other news, so Google is going to start charging Android vendors for the Play Store and Google Apps. Android used to be this entirely free, entirely open system with all of the services free to people who wanted to do it. And you just had to get certified to be a Play Store provider. And then along the way, they started taking core services and core functionalities out of Android and placing them into apps. And one of the reasons to do this was that the apps could be updated via the Play Store whenever Google wanted, as opposed to Android OS, which had to be updated with approval from carriers. And so it was really difficult to get people to update the Android OS on their phones. Vendors didn't want to do it because they wanted to sell new phones, and carriers didn't want to do it because they were afraid of a new operating system running on their network.
Right.
So Google said, you know what, fine, and run around all of this. We're going to put all the functionality into our Google Apps and Play Store, and if you want updates, you'll get them that way. And that's fine, except that the European Commission has decided that is now antitrust.
Wasn't there, I seem to remember something about Android developers could only have access to the store if they did other things. I mean, presumably complied with legal conditions. I don't know, but isn't that part of
some part of it? But basically, what's going on here is that they fined Google $5 billion, and so Google has agreed that they're going to start licensing Play and licensing the Google services and apps that they put out on Play to handset manufacturers.
Okay.
Which has the knock-on effect of, are they going to eat that cost, or are they going to pass it on to their consumer?
Well, there's such a lot of profit margin in Android phones. I imagine they'll just eat the cost, won't they?
You'd think so. Probably not. No. What's going to happen is that everyone's Android phone is going to get slightly more expensive as a result, and they won't notice because, well, phones are $1,000 from Apple.
Yes. So, yes, $10 of an Android phone becoming 11 doesn't seem that big a deal. Plus, I don't know how many people buy Android phones on rolling carrier subscription things, so the price might even be even less per month or whatever. But yes, I don't see what the alternative is unless everybody suddenly decides to stop buying Android phones because of this annoying tiny increase and instead spend, like you say, £1,000 on an iPhone.
Yeah.
which personally I sanction entirely.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting thing to see entirely. So what's going to happen here is Google doesn't really want to do this, but they're going to do it. Google also wants to have some way to combat Samsung. We'll talk about that in the next story in just a moment. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? With Blue Chew, that's blue like the color, you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. BlueChew.com brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. Since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill. You can be ready anytime, day or night. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package. No more in-person doctor's visits, no more waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no more awkwardness. Blue Chew is made in the USA and shipped direct, so they're cheaper than a pharmacy. And right now we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment free when you use our special promo code, AppleInsider. Just pay $5 shipping. Again, that's BlueChew.com, promo code AppleInsider to try it free. Blue Chew, the better, cheaper, faster choice. Qualcomm and the Federal Trade Commission in the United States are asking for more time to reach settlement in the Apple connected antitrust case. So Qualcomm and the US FTC have asked a federal judge to postpone a preliminary ruling because they're hoping to pursue a settlement.
They've asked for this, but they haven't got it yet.
It's not been granted yet, but basically partial summary judgment could happen, and that's what they're asking for the delay is to hold that off. Now, why would they want to hold off summary judgment?
Yeah.
Because if they can work out a settlement that's advantageous to them, that's better than being judged.
Okay, that makes sense. But I don't know how long they've had in order to reach a settlement before. Will 30 days really make a difference?
A lot could be agreed to in 30 days.
True. And presumably they're confident. This isn't one of these things where in 28 days they'll ask for another 30-day extension.
Judges don't usually look kindly upon that.
Right.
You had your 30 days. You're not getting more unless you've got a really good reason, and they don't. So, or at least I don't suspect they do. The point of this is that they're trying to get rid of and clean up as many legal disputes as they can in order to reach financial targets. And the way that works is that when you have legal clouds overhead, they depress your stock price.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
Right.
so if they can clear up these things, then their stock price will be boosted. It'll come back because people will be reassured by them. So they're trying to get up to about $7.50 in earnings per share for their 2019 fiscal year.
Well, presumably, I mean, all these companies always have these things going on, hanging over their heads. Why are they particularly keen now? Are they trying to prepare themselves to, be bought to make them a better target for some purchaser?
Well, I don't know that. Now, see, when you start talking about that, a good question is who would want them? You could say Apple would want them because it would just go ahead and let them take the cell modem and they wouldn't have to use the Intel modem.
Yeah.
You could say Apple would want them because then they would own all the IP around the Snapdragon CPUs, which would be a bad news for Android.
Yes.
You could say that Samsung should buy them because then Samsung can use the Snapdragon as their own property and also restrict supply to other customers for it.
Okay.
Right? Huawei has the Kirin processor, but LG, Google's Pixel, HTC, Oppo, who are they using? Well, you can use MediaTek or they can use Snapdragon.
Mm-hmm.
There are a very limited number of ARM CPUs out there that you can just use. And so being able to buy Snapdragon, which is, of course, one of the better ones, would be a big way to go.
Okay.
Now, Google, for their part, would really hate that because Google wants to be able to release flagship designs, flagship phones, and they do that because they're fighting a war against Samsung. The problem is that Samsung is almost synonymous with Android.
But I mean, you say a war. I can understand why Google would like. I think you're saying that everybody equates Samsung with Android and Android with Samsung, and there's poor old Google who invented it. But isn't Samsung bringing in a lot of money to Google for this?
The difficulty is that when Samsung has as much control as they have, they get to define what Android is, and that's not where Google wants it to be. And so years ago, Samsung was working on an escape hatch plan called Tizen OS.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, Google's working on an escape hatch OS called Fuchsia. Okay. Fuchsia is not Android. Fuchsia can run Android applications, but it's an operating system that's separate from it entirely. And so Fuchsia would be a way of Google regaining control over what their mobile OS is. And that's something that they need to do. Now, if Google bought Qualcomm, then Google would have control over the processor supply and phones and everything else.
Okay. Just
now, of course, they'd probably be subject to more antitrust stuff from.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So it's very much picture a bunch of people in a room with each one's with swords pointed at each other.
Yes.
That's what this is.
Okay.
Yep. Now, in late breaking news, Apple has sent out invites for the upcoming event.
Yay. At
Yay.
last. Been waiting for this. Yes.
Right. Now, this event is focused around what looks like making stuff and creativity. They're going to do it in Brooklyn, I believe. And yeah, it's happening in New York City, in Brooklyn. And it says there's more in the making, is the tagline here. And the Apple logo is a large number of different versions of it. And they're all artistic. And so each person who's getting an invite gets a randomized one. They aren't all the same.
Okay. Do we know how many there are?
No, but there are a ton. And it's probably likely that a whole bunch of designers were tasked with coming up with a ton of these things. And they just randomized the list and sent out a bunch.
Okay, that's cool.
But that tells me that it's probably an iPad event. And it's an iPad event focused around creativity. So expect to see something about iPad Pro and Apple Pencil.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, we were expecting an iPad Pro. I don't know if we were expecting a pencil. I mean, generally one assumes one's coming, but I don't remember there being much of an evidence trail for it.
Even if there's no pencil too, and it's just the same pencil, if the event focuses on the artistry and the things that you can do, then that's enough, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that now. All right.
Yep.
That's great. I really like that. I mean, I quite like Apple's cryptic cards, but it feels like they're going a bit further now.
Yeah, this is a unique one because in the past we've always gotten the same invite from everyone. Here, unique artistic invites.
Brilliant.
Bespoke, artisanal invites.
And this is on October 30th.
Yes, it is.
Okay, right. Clear your diary for that.
Yep. Well, this is the episode. This is all the time we have. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and we will be back next week with more.
Cool. Thank you very much. Nice talking to you from Los Angeles. Yes.
Where can people find you on the internet now that we know we can find you in Los Angeles?
Okay. I'm at W. Gallagher.
Great. I'm at V. Marks. I want everyone to go ahead and send William email at wgallagher@appleinsider.com. And if you can figure out how you're going to use the Apple Watch to record in situations where you don't have connectivity and then get the data out to iCloud, let us know, because this is an interesting exercise.
Yeah, not really sure how I'll even try it, but I'll have a good go. Okay.
Record, turn your phone off, and see where the data goes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
I'll go do that. Bye-bye.
We'll talk to you all next week. We'll see you back then.